Good morning, everybody. Welcome to your Rangers Review team news reaction video ahead of today's Old Firm clash at Parkhead. Rangers taking on Celtic, and the teams have not long dropped, so we'll dive into that shortly. But Joshua joins us. How's it going, Joshua? I think this is the first time we've had you on since, first time this calendar year. Do you have a good one?
Is it? Oh, I was on with Blair on New Year's Day when you were maybe nursing a sore head. I think we all were because it was a pre-record. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm quite looking forward to today. I think that it's a huge opportunity. Even just looking at those teams, Derek. I still think I'm waiting for Rangers to take one of those opportunities before I feel confident about a day like today. But there's definitely a big chance. So yeah, let's get into this team news.
Yeah, a chance to go level on points with Celtic this afternoon. Let's bring the team up then, folks. This is how Rangers will set up this afternoon. Jack Butland in goal. Danny Rule going with a back four. Dujon Sterling preferred to James Tavernier at right back. John Souttar and Manny Fernandez, the two centre-halves. Jayden Magoma at left back. Midfield, duo of Barron and Raskin with Asgard, Gassama and Moore, supporting Yusuf Chermiti up top. Now on the bench for Rangers today consists of Liam Kelly, Nsiala, Aarons, Tavernier, Curtis Dowell, Diamandi, Miovski back from illness, and Danilo. James Tavernier not making the starting 11, I think, is probably headline news, Joshua, and Daniel going with a 4 as opposed to a 5. What do you make of today's lineup?
Yeah, I put out my predicted team about an hour ago, and I think the only change from it is Mooring for Tavernier. And I like that, to be honest, Eric. I think this is a bit of a ambitious team. I thought Rule might stick with his back five. And again, what I think you'll see is, much like you have in the last couple of games at Ibrox, Rangers will start in that back four, but at points, Gassama could kind of morph into that back five. However, I quite like the fact that you've got a ball carrier on two sides of the pitch. I like the fact that it's going to be Moore and Magoma up against Celtic's probably weaker right-hand side. They're going with, I'll just read their team out: Schmeichel, Ralston, Trusty, Tierney, Yang, McGregor, Engels, McCowan, Nygren, Maeda and Kenny. And the big area, I think, of weakness that you've seen in the Celtic team as of late, apart from set pieces, which we'll come on to, is the fact that Ralston and Yang on that right-hand side have conceded a fair number of chances, and obviously those 2 goals at Livingston. I thought Tello Asgard would be in the team because Rangers will want to dominate at set pieces. That's why I thought James Tavernier might be in there too for his delivery, although he's not taken all of them as of late. Asgard's also scored 2 and 2. I think you needed to keep Jeji Gassama in there, Derek, because he was a miss for me in the last Old Firm game. He's one of the few Rangers players that you bank on being able to do something, beat his man, and I think his end product's been better in the last couple of games. And then it makes sense chucking an extra attacker in there with Mikey Moore, and I guess starting maybe in that back four, instead of starting in a 5 that could go into a 4, gives you an extra body up the pitch to try and press Celtic. I think the biggest, I know it's a different manager and a kind of different tactical setup the Celtic are playing with, but the biggest feeling I had at Hampden just over a month ago was, what a missed opportunity, because Rangers didn't put pressure and didn't apply pressure on Celtic until they were down to 10 men. Seems like Danny Rule's learned that lesson a little bit, and this team is to get after the game as opposed to trying to soak up pressure first and foremost.
Yep. I mean, Tav's press conference yesterday, I've seen there was a few comments saying he was not too chipper and he was a bit subdued. I wonder if he'd been told prior to that he wasn't starting the game. But big call from Danny Rule. I like it, I've got to say. I think Dujon Sterling, of course, rested in midweek, so he should be fresh, and I do like him in that team. There was an argument as to where he would play, whether right centre-back. Even I've seen Kevin Thompson on his podcast saying he should be playing in the midfield alongside Connor Barron and Nico Raskin, which I wasn't too upset if that would have been the case either, because he just adds a bit of bite physicality in there. But right back, yeah, I'm fairly happy with that. Connor Barron coming back in as well, of course, came off the bench in midweek against St Mirren. You mentioned Asgard there. It's a big afternoon for him because he gets sent off in that semi-final, of course. The game at Ibrox, I know people were saying I'd done a job in McGregor. I was looking for a lot more from him, I've got to admit. And he was brought to the club for games like today, and he has scored 2 in 2 and shown a wee bit of form. And just what he could bring to the team. But it's all well and good doing it in games against Motherwell and St Mirren. No disrespect to them. He has to do it against Celtic, doesn't he, Joshua?
He does, and he probably has that job again of sitting on Callum McGregor, because I think the interesting thing about today is that Wilfred Nancy, obviously the real dominant narrative about him is that he's kind of changed a bit of a winning formula. He's tried to embed something mid-season, loads of parallels to Russell Martin's tenure, and it comes in kind of stark contrast to the rhetoric of Danny Rule. And actually what he said at his press conference yesterday, whether a subtle point he was trying to make or not, he effectively said, what I'm trying to do is suit my style to my players mid-season. And that's why he's been able to get Rangers back into this conversation. They still need to win a big game. They've not done that so far, and that's why today is such a huge opportunity, because if you win today, not only do you kind of supercharge your own momentum, Derek, but you also put a real nail in the coffin of your direct rivals. It would mean 6 defeats in 8 for Wilfred Nancy at Celtic. If you let Celtic off the hook, so to speak, then I think the sense of missed opportunity will just be so strong, which again maybe feeds into to Rule's decision today to go for the game a bit. But the point about Rangers maybe being a bit more tactically unpredictable, winning games through small margins, set pieces, and that's why I thought he might go with a slightly more defensive lineup today. I think it's harder to predict what Rangers are going to do going into this game, as is materialised by the team selection that not a ton of people would have picked. Whereas Celtic are a little bit more predictable, as shown by their starting 11. And what you saw Motherwell do a few days ago, and what you saw their manager do, was change his press and shape off the ball and really give his team a platform by targeting the Celtic weaknesses that he'd previously identified. Celtic have still created quite a lot of chances, bar that Motherwell game under Nancy, but I don't think they've kept the clean sheet. They've lost 5 and 7. In terms of opportunity, it's as big as you get going into an Old Firm game like this. And again, I'll keep coming back to it, the fact that it's Asgard, Gassama and Moore behind the striker. I think that's Danny Rule going, do you know what? Let's try and turn this crowd and make them nervous early. Let's try and get after this team who are weak defensively. And because of the size in that team, let's try and win this game at set pieces too, because Celtic have also conceded, I think, 5 set plays in the last 6 games, whereas Rangers obviously scored a couple against St Mirren, so should be feeling pretty confident in that area.
Yeah, I think offensively, Scott Fry is certainly cooking, as Thierry would probably say. Defensively, I think there needs to be a bit more work. I think Rangers still look ropey at the back, but in an offensive sense, you look at guys like Manny Fernandez, who is a bit of a cheat code at points, given that the size of him. Happy with it? Just the 2 centre backs in there, Joshua. Just Suter, of course, just coming back from injury. It looks lean and mean. It looks like he's lost a bit of timber. Manny Fernandez. I've got to say, before Rangers scored a goal, both he and Suter pretty loose in possession against St Mirren at points. Fernandez, he's got that sort of dwells on the ball at points, and this is, of course, his first Old Firm encounter. He has to maybe sharpen up that aspect of his game.
Yeah, I think both of them, Derek, because Suter had that moment where he kind of went down trying to buy a foul. Was that the second half or first half? And it's that type of moment with Suter that always gives me, I think he'd probably be fine in an Old Firm game, but it's that type of moment with him that always gives me that, how long until the next error? And Manny Fernandez, I think he's been pretty good, but you'd probably need them next to a centre-back who's going to be pretty flawless. So both of them need a big showing. Having Dujon Sterling there, and it looks like from the Celtic team, interestingly, and I wonder how much this plays into Danny Rule's thinking, it looks like it's made off the left, because they've got Johnny Kenny kind of leading their strike force, and he's not had a great time of it in front of goal, but he obviously did score, and I thought he actually played well against John Suter in that game at Hampden. I thought he had the better of that battle. So I'd imagine, again, it'll be more of a Sterling will tuck in. I don't think you'll see him overlapping a lot. I think what Rangers will try and do is isolate Gigi Gassama wide on that right-hand side, get Moore and Magoma up against Ralston and Yang, and try and make the game go in Celtic's direction, as opposed to sitting back and inviting a lot of pressure. Because in the middle of the park, that's where Celtic have created a few chances and have looked dangerous at points. The set pieces for me is just such a big aspect of this game because Celtic don't have a big team. They're playing, is it one centre back or two centre backs, maybe two in Scales and Trusty? Let me just double check. No, it's just Trusty and just Trusty because it's Ralston, Trusty, and Tierney. So that's a huge opportunity for Rangers. You think back to the win at Parkhead in March with Raskin. We know what a threat he can be from set pieces. John Souttar was inches away from scoring the winner in the 0-0 draw, obviously ruled off by VAR. We know about Manny Fernandez in there, who's such a threat. Dujon Sterling is not small. Tello Asgard scored from a set piece in the most recent game and has had a few opportunities too. Yusuf Tremiti also is not small. That needs to be something that Rangers try to force today.
Yeah. Their new signing, incidentally, Julian Arujo, on the bench today for Celtic. It's a weird situation that Rangers and Celtic have both got the Bournemouth out of favour right backs in their squad. Not too sure what to make of that, but there you go. It's a big opportunity for Rangers this afternoon. There's a point that came in. I wanted to get your view on this, Joshua, from Paul. He says, hopefully Moore given more of a free role today. Do you think you'll be given that licence to sort of roam in the forward areas and try and take on players and drag players out of position?
I definitely think it will be Moore off the left and Gassama off the right.
Yeah.
And I think you'll see Asgard and Moore try and form a bit of a box midfield with Magoma pushing up. So in possession, Rangers shape might look like, Magoma providing the width on the left, Gassama on the right, a back three of Souttar, Sterling and Fernandez, a bit of a box midfield with Asgard off the right-hand side of that box and Moore off the left, giving a bit more license to roam. I think that's where he's at his best. That goal he scored against Kilmarnock, because when he's moving off the right-hand side, he can't shield the balls effectively. When he's moving off the left-hand side, I think he can. And then you need another performance from Yusuf Tremiti, like you saw against St Mirren, which is occupying defenders. Would you back him to win that physical battle against Austin Trusty? I think he has a good chance of it. And then it comes down to the kind of attacking players behind him as well. There was an interesting comment that Danny Rule made in his press conference after the St Mirren win, where he said Tello Asgard's playing on the right-hand side of the pitch because he was slowing it down too much on the left. What we've seen so often this season, checking back, cutting back inside, playing backwards. Whereas on the right, he has to go forward, doesn't he? Because he's not going to want to chop onto his weaker left foot. So those 2 goals in 2 games, hopefully they can it'll be a confidence-boosting factor for him. I don't have concerns about someone like Mikey Moore at his age playing in this game, because I think you've seen, even just from his interviews, that he has the sort of mentality that should allow him to go and be brave and take the ball today. But definitely expect him to be off the left with a bit more of a free role. Gassama on the right, where he's looked more dangerous as of late, and obviously he'll be up against Tierney and whoever it is at left wing back, trying to give Rangers a bit of an outlet on that side.
Yep, I've got their formation, incidentally. According to Sky, it's a 3-4-2-1 for Celtic. So Schmeichel, of course, in goal. Ralston, Trusty, Tierney at the back. I just want Rangers to have a go at them today. I think it's there for them. Yang, McGregor, Engels and McCowan across the middle. Nygren and Maida supporting Kenny up top. Just on Tremiti, and I thought it was also interesting, Danny Rule was pressed on what exactly he's done to improve his game recently, and it went into a bit of detail, which I thought was pretty enlightening, saying that he gives an exit ball to the target player to hold the ball, because that means for us to push out, travel together up the pitch. Now it's about movements into the box. I think this is the next step, what he should do more and more. There was in the second half a fantastic situation, talking about the St Mirren game. He was a first to link player, then he was not waiting. Deeper down, he was straight running back on the last line, and it was a good signal. But of course, his movements in the box would be now more and more, so it's difficult for the defenders to mark him. If you do this, then I think he comes more and more into situations, and of course, not also for us, not just for Yusuf to make good movements. It's also about bringing the ball in the right areas, the final pass, the last pass in the box to improve. So that was Danny Rule on Yusuf Tremiti. Blazing Blue is confident he'll have a good game today. Says he'll bully their back line. Hope we're singing his praises after the game. Danny has definitely improved him. And check these for odds. Colin says, got 226 to 1 for a Tremiti hat-trick surely today. If that comes up, Colin, we'll get you on the show. Tell you what, I think that's a fair shout. Is he getting a goal today, Joshua, do you reckon?
Is he getting a goal today? Well, I think it's more likely. I think you have more people saying yes than a couple of weeks ago. And against St Mirren, we spoke about it on the show in the first. He was good in isolation. I thought he occupied the St Mirren back line really well. Created a couple chances. Obviously, creates the goal with that cross, doesn't he? For Manny Fernandez. But he also plays a nice ball into Gassama on the right that nearly results in a goal too. And the fact that Celtic are only playing one centre back means it will probably be a bit of a physical contest between Yusuf Chumiti and Austin Trusty. What it gives is Rangers the ability, as Rule says, an exit ball, the ability to go from A to B really quickly. And that's what you don't have when you play with Bojan Miovski, because he wants to run beyond and play in the shoulder, more akin to the movement we tend to see from someone like Cyril Dessers, where I think Chumiti more often than not will try and be that physical outlet to get you up the pitch. You should have that with Asgard too. He's a big guy, he should be able to put himself about. And then an area of the pitch we've not talked about, but is not a surprise, is that it's Nico Raskin and Connor Barron. I don't think, although Mohamed Diamandi came in for that game at Tynecastle, I don't think he really took his chance, and therefore it makes sense that Asgard's in there and Raskin and Barron too. So it feels set up for Rangers to go and play. It feels set up for them to go and take this chance, this opportunity, Derek. My slight reservation is that we've just not seen this team, or different variations of this team, do that enough. Yeah. And under Danny Rule as of yet, whether it be the game at Tynecastle or the game at Hampden, which, as he said, was earlier in his tenure. Rangers had only had a couple of wins under him by that point. We've not seen them kind of grasp that moment yet. However, that team, to me, as I said at the start of the show, does sound like one or looks like one that reflects on the errors of that day at Hampden. Danny Rule spoke in his press conference about trying to target Celtic weaknesses, and he actually said as well he thinks they're nervous, and he said it kind of in his unassuming tones, so maybe didn't sound like it read. But Rangers need to try and turn that crowd early today, and again, a point I've probably made too many times by this point. I think that as a team to try and do that.
Yep. Listen, we all know, we've seen his press conference yesterday, which was quite something. Wilfred Nancy is a guy under pressure. The fans, well, I've not seen seen a Celtic fan putting their head above the parapet saying he deserves more time. I think the vast majority want him to go already. So I think if Rangers can get their noses in front in this game, ideally even an early goal, then I reckon the crowd is going to turn on them, and it'll make it even more difficult than what it already is. Remember, this is a team, Daniel's quite right to point out, they are nervous. Motherwell quite rightly beat them in the last game, but they still have decent players in there, and it's going to be a bit of a battle. Daniel did say that these players will be ready to fight, and I think it's going to be one of those, as long as there's not any reckless tackles a la Tello Asgard, try and keep 11 men on the pitch, then they give themselves an opportunity. I just get a sneaky feeling, Joshua, that Rangers are going to win today. I'm going 2-1.
Well, my final point I was going to make is that I feel like one of the real stories of the last 2 and 3 years, and I'm thinking back to when Brendan Rodgers first arrived and Michael Beale's team lost, Russell Martin's 0-0 draw at the start of the season, and other examples. I feel like one of the things that Rangers have failed so badly to do is to really capitalise when Celtic are weak. And they did that eventually under Steven Gerrard, but they've not done it enough as of late. And Hampden was, again, the latest example of that, when Celtic had an interim manager, Martin O'Neill, who'd just come into the club, and they weren't able to kind of put their foot to the floor and win it. Today's a huge chance, and they need to go and take it. Celtic have that Old Firm experience with McGregor and others. Danny Rule, what he's done well so far is look at he's adapted to opponents week on week. You know, we showed it on myself, yourself, and Johnny, how the shape was different against Motherwell as it was to Hibs, and even then going back to St Mirren. So you'd like to have a bit of confidence that he's managed to identify some weaknesses today and pick a team to go out and win it. And now it's up to them to try and rise to the occasion. If Rangers can win it, then it feels so significant. If they lose it, it doesn't bear thinking about. Let's see what happens.
Well, Win, lose or draw, we'll be back after the full-time whistle, folks, to give you our thoughts on the game. But that team, once again, before we wrap up, 12:30 kickoff, remember, Butland in goal, Sterling, Suter, Fernandez, Magoma, the back four, Baron, Raskin in the holding midfielders, with Asgard, Gassama, Moore supporting Chermiti up top. Right. Enjoy the game, folks, if you can. It's always a nervy affair when you watch it live in the main, unless Rangers start scoring goals early. Although even the game last season, the Barry Ferguson game, Rangers raced into a 2-0 lead, and of course we know what happened after that. Celtic pegged it back, and then enter Hamza Igaman. Who will be the Hamza Igaman today, I wonder? Let's hope that is someone. But that will wrap us up there for now, and we'll speak to you after the game, folks. Bye for now.